Okay, welcome everybody to another wild beer tasting evening, tasting box and experience. Tonight we've got some really amazing and delightful guys coming on. I'm sure one of them may not have been described as delightful before. We'll see what he says. I can see him laughing already. But we are celebrating some English hops tonight, and so excited that there's been such a big excitement and energy behind this new beer, Babbling Brook, and we will dig into what's in the beer and what it took to grow the green gold hops that's in there. So as the chat room's warming up, we've got the beginning of the Wild Beer crew, Jimma, and also the lovely Richard Simpson coming and joining. But everybody, thank you so much for taking part in this. Again, we are going to have about a 1 hour session of tasting 3 different beers. We're going to start with Babbling Brook. Then we'll have Madness IPA to contrast it. And then a further contrast, we'll have R.I.P.A. We're going to go in that order because they're smaller, there's less drinks. Sometimes we do up to 6 different ones. We'll be able to enjoy a bigger volume of them. That's kind of nice. And I think there's a number of new people on this live stream. So it's going to be pretty fun to have that. I hope, what did you guys think of that video slideshow music thing? I hadn't made one of those before, so we'll see how that goes for next time, see if we can develop that. Oh, we got Mr. Sam Shrimpton in the chat room, head brewer of the Wild Beer Company. Key to making all these beers so delightful. James in there. James Bargett, key to making some of the wild sour beers so wild and sour. He is the man behind It's a R.I.P.A. So there's a load of Wild Beer team and crew and family in the chat room answering questions, having some bants, and I believe there is a bunch of the Brook House team as well. So it's been a crazy January, dry January for lots of people, where Britain likes to believe that they have a drinking problem. And I'm so pleased that everybody can get so healthy. But let's get it going again. Let's enjoy some beers and get out into the exercise and the fresh air as well. But I really want to get these 2 guys on to talk hops and tell some stories, because I met Jim, one of the sales executives, if that's what they call him. He is a friend and guy who's introduced me to new kinds of hops and new varieties, new flavors, and new people all over the world as well. So really excited about that. And Brook House Farms has been pretty neat to get to know over the last couple of months. They were quite new to us, so it's going to be pretty neat. For anybody who is new to this whole thread and live tasting, welcome. This is we do this we try to do it about once a month. We took a little bit of time off before Christmas. We were just so busy, but we try to do this about once a month and focus on flavor and the experience of why have some of the beers that we make, because we make some pretty crazy fun beers that you kind of question, when would I ever drink a tart apple saison that's 9% alcohol, and you have it at any celebration, obviously. But some of these beers that we get to taste and hear from the brewers and the team who made them, but also like this tasting, we get to dive deeper into the people who make the ingredients and grow the ingredients behind the beers. So not just a couple of dudes talking shop. Hopefully it is a whole lot more interesting. We're just launched a new tasting box tonight that you can pre-order for at the end of February. So if you're interested in this, if you like this and you didn't get the box, and you want to flag it up and get a box for next time, we've got a brand new tasting box. February, we're going to be live on February the 26th. It's a Friday, and that box is pretty neat. We came up with a bunch of different ideas for the name. I don't know what it's settled as, but Lager Than Life, or Lager Better Than You Know It, or it's about lager. It's all about lager. We have barrel-aged lager, dark decocted lager, a traditional decocted lager, and kind of a modern Pilsner. So those are all going to be pretty neat and going into a bunch of that stuff. But without further ado, I'm going to bring in these guys. So we've got Will joining us. Do we have you? Good. Wait, you're on. Why are you on mute? Have I muted you?
No, is that better? Hi, Brett.
I think that was me. I'm sorry, guys.
Cool.
Sorry, guys. And I lost my background as well. I had a background up. Apologies, but I'll get that in a minute. But we have Will and Jim.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing, everyone?
So from Brook House Farms, you can't really see it. It's still got James's comment up. Let's get James's woohoo out of there. Oh my goodness, we need like a producer or someone who can do all this stuff up instead of me. So welcome, guys. Jim, you are lovely, but I have a feeling Will's going to beat the delight. He's going to be the delightful one.
Yeah, no, it's great to be great to be here. We've not done a live event like this, so it's a good opportunity. Yeah,
that's great. I know that people are going to be eager to start sipping something. So as we start going, we could open up the beer of the evening. Did you get it? The Londis. Is that your carrier bag from the Londis that you?
Absolutely.
All right. So we had two tasting options, 2 boxes available online. One was the kind of mini case, it's like a 6-pack of beer in a glass. I think it was this glass. I'm not sure. And then the ultimate IPA box, which was a shed load of different IPAs, which was pretty neat looking at our IPA box, in that there's so many different, we play a lot with yeast and fermentation and tartness and fruit and hops all together. So it's not just, no offense to you guys, it's not just 50 shades of hop. But it's got a lot more dimension, I think, to the beers, to that ultimate IPA box. I mean, hops make everything better, but
yeah, right.
I'm sure you just want everybody to make big, juicy, cloudy New England IPAs with your hops, because your sales would go through the roof if everybody was making those.
Yeah. Oh, cheers. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Cheers. So I met you, Jim, a number of years ago from the hop industry, and you introduced me to the world of like big aromatic. Well, not introduced me, but took me deeper into it and really you've introduced me to a number of different growers and farmers, but really recently, you've introduced me to Will and Brook House Farms, which has been pretty neat and eye-opening to me, because I've always looked further afield than our back garden for hops.
It's definitely an easier commute to go to see this farm, that's for sure.
But it hasn't let me down. It's continued to surprise me all the way through. So it's been nice.
Good to hear.
And Will, how long has Brook House been going, and how did you start? Has it been in your family?
Yeah, so we, my wife and I got bored of living in London. We could either live in a tiny weeny house, or I could commute for a couple of hours in order to get into work. And we started a family, and so we decided to move out. And my second cousin, I think, had a farm in Herefordshire, which is complete cider country. Like half the cider apples in the world, I think, are grown within about 20 miles of here. But it's also hop country. And the farm which he had used to be quite famous as a hop farm, but it stopped growing hops in about the 70s. And everyone said English hops, it's a hiding to nothing, you're not going to get anywhere. But, I had a good look at it, and I think the resurgence in craft brewing meant that there was actually something in hops, and it wasn't a busted flush. So we took on the farm. We swapped a tiny weeny postage stamp in London for a nice slab of countryside in Herefordshire, and got going hop farming. And I spent a fair bit of time traveling around the world trying to figure out how people grew hops elsewhere, and then brought that back to here. And so that was about 5 years ago we started growing hops, and then 2.5 years ago we started selling directly to brewers like you guys, I guess. And before that, everything had been done through merchants. So we're still feeling out how that's going to work, but I think it's been shown to work very well in the US and other countries. So we're getting there.
Was that selling through merchants has shown to work really well, or direct?
No, selling directly. I think farmers elsewhere in the world have started forming connections with brewers. And that's a two-way thing. It's not just about cutting out the merchants. It's about getting feedback from brewers on what they want from their hops, and that means the guys who work here on the farm can take feedback and figure out how to maximize for aroma, not for yield, and get the best flavors possible.
And Jim, when did you start up with Brook House, and what was kind of a bit of your journey of hop flavor, or at least how?
Mine and Will's paths crossed probably unknowingly in 2015. So probably when you just started out. So I always knew that they were around and knew what they were doing, and had kind of kept an eye on what was happening. And earlier on, sort of midway through last year, the guys got in contact with me, and I started with Brook House in November. And it's really refreshing to see, because like you said earlier, we've been all around the world looking at hops in the US, in Germany, and it's a hell of a lot different to what it is over here. English hops fell out of favor for quite some time, but there's definitely been a resurgence in locally grown ingredients and telling a story about the ingredients used in a beer. And to see the level of investment that Will was put into the farm is, it's really good to see. And, it's a new generation of hop farmers coming through. So, the future looks really bright. And so It's good. I'm very early in my journey with Brook House.
Yeah. And so it was such a exciting, like when you came and spoke to me, Jim, and saying, you know, Brett, like you visited UK hop farms and kilns, and you've also visited ones in America and in Germany, and the ones at Brook House are right up there with the best of the US and Germany. And I have yet to get there, taking the words, but the proof is in the pudding, really, in the hops that people are smelling. I forgot we got to go through a little bit of that. People have hops in their box. I forgot about that. So yeah, the proof was in the pudding, really. Like your guys' attention to detail and focus on bringing modern or new, and as well as that direct to customer kind of us brewers. I think really that really changed the hop industry in the US a lot, kind of 15 years ago, and so having that direct to us for that feedback, I think is pretty neat. So I used to be a chef, and having that farm to table, telling that it was always a thing from the chefs that I worked for, trying to respect the ingredients to let them shine and not faff with them too much, and tell the story of the farmer and tell the story that they're trying to tell of the season. And that's exactly what I love it when we're able to do that, and not just work with a merchant, or work with a online fruit seller or hop seller or something. So if we can actually maybe not meet face to face in these times, but call you up or do something just like this, it's awesome. But in this beer, the hops that really shone out to Sam and I, and also to the team, I think we had our marketing team, we had our production team, packaging team, sales team, everybody. Actually, this is before this lockdown now, when we did this hop rubbing. You guys sent us your selection that Jim, I think you and I spoke about it. You guys sent us 10 different hops, 10 or 12 different hops for us to rub, and Sam and I had a go, appreciating the character, and then everybody else kind of came in and took their turns, appreciating it, learning about hop rubbing and how to appreciate the character of hops in an analytical way, which we're about to do, I think. But maybe just talk about this beer, and people are already coming in with comments and saying it's like burnt oranges, good balance, apricot notes. I hope I didn't read all this one. Hopefully it's all the way through is pretty good. Yeah, easy drinking. In this one though, the hops that really stood out that we thought were going to make a good blend is Phoenix, Bramling Cross, Target, and a small, in comparison, quite a small amount of your guys' UK grown Chinook. So it's about 10 kilos of each of all those, and then the Chinook is only 5 kilos in a whole batch. So it's quite a hefty hop amount that we put in here. How are you guys finding interest from small craft brewers up to the larger regional brewers? Where's your? I don't know if
are we allowed to give that away?
Top secret.
You've worked on some public projects just like this, right? You've worked on some projects. Yeah. Sorry, okay, you don't have to, but you can talk.
You said something interesting to me when we started this project, and that was that you wanted to get to know English hops again. And I think that the way that craft has moved at such a great rate in the last 5 to 10 years, that it's been like a tsunami of new hop flavors, new aromas, and new methods of brewing, that actually sometimes it's nice to be able to take the time to come back and look at what's on your doorstep, kind of thing.
It definitely is. There's a lot of hop varieties out there to choose from, and sometimes I just forget about even old ones that I just kind of rediscovered Simcoe last year, and not to take it away from American hops, but I just kind of fell in love with that again. I kind of had forgotten about it to an extent, just not experienced it for a while. But so I started brewing here in this country, not in America, and it was at an English, mostly cask ale brewery, and using Pioneer, using Phoenix and Admiral, Brambling Cross, a good amount of black Brambling Cross, and so coming back to doing the rubbing with your guys' hops took me back in time, and is brilliant, and it really has stood the test of time, those memories, and I hope, and kind of hopefully this new approach to brewing as well, with so much hops in there. Do you guys have anything about those varieties that some of the flavors or character, or maybe just of the beer itself, and then we can go into the hop presentation, Will, that you shared? Maybe we'll talk about that. So
yeah, I think I've never had an IPA with this many grams of hops per litre in before, and so it's really interesting to have a beer brewed with English hops at the same level of hopping that you get in US hops. And no, it's turned out really well to my taste. Yeah.
Great. And Jim, you were talking about it, kind of the aroma was pretty big for what you were expecting.
Yeah, like there's many different aspects to the process that can affect the aroma, but just the way that it shone through, that sort of lime marmalade kind of flavor that comes right out the glass of you, it's fantastic, super refreshing.
The lime was a surprising one to me. I was really hoping we were going to get some different type of citrus and different type of fruits than the typical English variety of character, and the lime was definitely one that jumped out. And the marmalade as well was, so we've been talking about it because usually you associate a marmalade character with an IPA as kind of an aged quality, but this is definitely not an oxidized or aged beer. And we're putting that down, and the character that we're getting, and even like a bigger malt character, was quite surprising from this sweetness. And so in the malt bill of this, we're using two different kind of heritage varieties. One is called Golden Promise from Simpsons, and the other half.
Oh yeah, there's some.
Sam's just talking about it here.
There's a pouch of hops on the table. Do you mind bringing it to me, please? Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
The two varieties of malt, the Simpsons Golden Promise, and also we've got crisp maltings, Chevalier malt. I don't know how to say that, but these two varieties really kind of combine together, bringing this real biscuity, bold, bit of like sweetness and that marmalade character. Really lovely. And also, I just got to continue to give you, Jim, just a little bit of flack, Mr. Eddie. Just look at that Jim's face. I gotta confess that I forgot my hops for this.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
So, which is so bad. I am going to get so much flack for that. But what we can do is I'm going to pull up a slideshow that you guys put together, and that's going to show. This kind of shows from kind of today, looking at the farm all the way through to after harvest. Is that about right? Is that what we're going to see?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So I'm just pulling that up now. and bear with me a sec. Well, I was going to pull it up. Oh, sorry, guys. Oh, that's disappointing.
Maybe share screen. Does that work?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry. I just I accidentally closed it down right before. I thought I closed down a different video, so that was a bit of a faux pas on my part there. But what is happening at the farm at the moment, Will? What's going on there? Is it high activity or is it a bit low?
So hops are a really funny plant. We have two huge peaks. One is in terms of how much work we have to do. One is in April and May, when we're getting everything ready to grow the hops, and the other peak is in September, which is harvest, which is absolutely everyone working 14, 16 hours a day, trying to get the crop in. But right now in the winter, it's time for everyone to really catch a breath and recharge. Having said that, we are doing a lot of preparation. We're always trying to figure out ways to, with hops, there's always a battle. They're very prone to diseases and pests. And so we're trying to figure out new ways to stop pests and diseases taking root without just spraying chemicals everywhere. And so, yeah, the slide you've got up right now, what we're doing is working out how to prune the hops. So get rid of all the residual fungi and pests which sit around over the winter, and then they'll come out in the summer and ruin the crop. So you can see here the trellis, the sort of grid of wire work sits above the hops, and below that there's almost nothing. It looks like an empty field.
Yeah.
And hops are a bit odd because if you look at wheat or barley, a normal crop that you drive past in a field on the motorway in England, they come up every year and from a seed, and they just sit there and the combine harvester drives over there and harvests it. And on the other hand, the other big category of crop is a permanent crop, like a cider orchard, where you can see a tree and it produces its fruit every year. Hops are odd in that there's a permanent plant sitting underneath the ground. So the green ridge, the green stripe you can see up the middle of the screen, that is full of hop plants. But they emerge every March or April and they grow like absolute bilio. They sort of cheat in terms of how quickly they can grow in a couple of ways. But there's nothing you can see above ground. And so that's huge contrast from what you'll get in July, August. The crop will be emerged from the ground. It'll be 4 or 5 meters up in the air. And so this same view, yeah, exactly, there is pretty well the same field. It's not the same field, but it would look the same. And there's no scale on there, but that's 5 meters up, just hops which have grown, and they throw all that sugar from the root straight up to grow, and also they don't have to support themselves. It's not like an apple tree or something. They grow up a string, which we put up there, a bit like a runner bean. So by August, September, you've just got a huge, massive block of foliage, which we're looking to harvest. And if you look closely at that image, a lot of what you can see is leaves and shoots. But in there, the brighter spots are the hop cones themselves, which is what we're looking to harvest.
I had it in order. Man, this is... Sorry.
No, we'll get through. It's fine.
Well, was it this one next?
Yeah, so that one next is harvest time. So hops ripen according to the longest day of the year. So at the end of June, the hops notice that the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer, and suddenly that triggers a hormone in them which says, I'm going to go and get ripe right now. And that varies by variety. So
And that was
in the US, they'll start picking Centennial first, and they'll end with some of the high alpha varieties like CTZ or Pato. For us in the UK, Fuggles is normally first, and then we'll finish with Pilgrim. But in this picture, these tractors that you can see in the middle of the picture are going across the hop yard, picking in the hops. And again, it's a big difference from arable. Like, you can buy your malting barley for maybe, I don't know what it is right now, 300 quid a ton maybe. Hops cost between 10 grand and 30 grand a ton. And that's because it takes so much time and so much effort, and the crop is so much bigger. We can't just drive a big machine across the hop yard and pick in the hops. We have these tractors out in the field. And then next slide, Blue Peter.
Yeah.
We hang the hops on upside down in a huge picking facility, and that requires a lot of labor in itself. No one's really figured out how to automate hop growing. So certain crops, they're just very fiddly, and in order to get it right, in order to get the quality right, you just do need a lot of people. And it's also not just the huge number of people. We've only got 1 month to pick our hops. So a sort of brewing analogy would be you've only got August and September to do all your brewing. So the first week of September, you're brewing your stouts. The second week, you're brewing your IPAs. The third week, you're brewing your porters. And we've only got 4 weeks. So everyone on the farm is working ridiculously hard. After they've been hung on, this slide shows how they're picked. And the big challenge there is separating all the leaves and stem from the hop cones themselves, so that we can get the purest possible sample for brewers. The next slide, number 9 there, shows Henry, the farm manager. He might well be on the on the program tonight, drying the hops, figuring out what's dry, what's ready. Is very much an art, not a science, figuring out when the hops are ready to drop, when they're properly kilned. So we dry them down from, they're about 70% moisture, 70 to 80% moisture. That they have a texture a bit like lettuce when they're picked, and we have to put a lot of heat through them to get them dry. So Henry there is figuring out how much more time they need in the oven. If you overcook them, you compromise the aroma, you lead to excessive oxidization. And he looks young. Don't tell him I said that. But he's quite experienced in figuring out how it goes there.
But he's really old.
Exactly. Well preserved.
Yeah.
And then after that, they go straight into bales where they're sort of compressed for handling into our cold store. And I think it sort of comes back to Babbling Brook, this beer. I think one of the problems with English hops has been the breeding and the genes. And it's meant that we're not getting the flavors required. No one's bred a Citra in the UK, but I think another aspect of it is the post-harvest processing and keeping them fresh afterwards. And what we're really trying to do is we're taking these heritage varieties like UK Chinook's very new, but maybe Bramling Cross was bred almost 100 years ago, but it's always been stored ambient up till now. And what we're doing is we're harvesting it and we're putting it straight into a cold store. And that means that when brewers take them out of the cold store, they're getting different flavors from what they were getting 30 years ago. And so I hope that that's what's feeding through into the beer.
Well, I think it is, and there's been some comments in here talking about rubbing the hop and smelling the beer, and going back and forth, and really getting the character that's coming from the hop actually translating into the beer. And so that really shows if you as a brewer, so like if we start off with kind of some kind of low grade, low aroma hops, you kind of won't, or just kind of subpar, not very good, you will get subpar character going into your beer. But if you start with something that's really amazing, and take care of that liquid the whole way through, it's going to translate through. So that quality in equals quality out really applies to making beer. And just got this diagram. Will, you sent over this diagram of just showing what is inside that hop cone, hop flower. And Jim, do you want to talk about how to rub hops? Like why do we rub hops? What's going on? What's the sticky stuff? All that kind of stuff, and then we can smell and taste the beer if people still have that one or if they haven't moved on. So.
Yeah, sure. So looking at the diagram, so one thing that's really unique to British hops is the fact that they're seeded. So in every other growing region in the world, there's a female plant and a male plant. In the UK, it's generally accepted that there'll be male plants in a hop yard or in a hop garden. Everywhere else in the world, if there's a male found, they'll be pulled out and killed, because when you have seeds in hops, what can happen is once the seed is developed, the cones become quite fragile. So what you end up losing if the cones break is the yellow stuff, which is the lupulin. And the lupulin is where a vast majority of the flavor is stored. So in there is where you've got all of your essential oils, and that's where you're going to get all of your aroma from. So, yeah. So
sticky stuff. That's the sticky.
Yeah.
On your fingers.
Yeah. So when you rub the hops, if you just rub them between your hands just to warm them up, you'll start to release warm up the oils. That's how you can feel it sticky. It's the resins and the oils, and then you'll really start to release those aromas. It'd be good to see in the comments what kind of aromas people get. Phoenix was a new one on me when I started at Brook House. I'd heard of it but never really seen it or known anyone to brew with it. So it was. I remember coming to see you guys, and it had just come off the kiln onto the conditioning floor, and I just picked a handful up and rubbed it, and it was just a sensation. It's certainly nothing I've seen in the UK before, which is the big, huge sort of jasmine and pear green tea aroma, which was just fantastic. I mean, people talking about terroir, that's the sort of things that we can achieve in this country, is those real unusual flavors, not those big impactful piney resin coconut flavors that you get with some of the modern US varieties, but a much more sort of depth of character.
So someone's asking about the seeds. Is that a seed that you can just put in the ground and start growing some hops, or is that not how the seeds work?
Well, you'll probably be able to answer that. I think the kilning would probably disable the seed.
Yeah, the kilning will make them sterile, and I suppose that there's two ways that can go. We are harvesting seeds to start a breeding program ourselves in order to try and develop more interesting flavors, but the seeds can also lead to issues for brewers. You can get hop creep from seeds from English hops, which is something brewers have to look out for. They contain a lot of compounds which aren't in American or German hops. But yeah, they are fertile seeds. The kiln will kill them off, but in a way, that's an opportunity for us to try and get new flavors. Yeah.
So loads of different comments and perceptions. So Sam, again, the head brewer, he's saying Phoenix is like chocolate, candied orange peel, bitter orangey, sweet. This is the best one. Initially smells like new carpet. Love it.
That's definitely what we were looking for when we were growing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massive tea notes, jasmine, sweet black tea. I think a lot of these are just like spot on, and loads of lemon, almost lilac. Great.
And I think that what Kerry was saying about that new carpet smell is because the oils and the resins, they're solvents. So probably something used in the manufacturing of carpet is probably solvent based, and that's where you get that from.
And it's
which is pear, so pear drops.
Right. And yeah, I was going to say also I've seen like hop extracts, and they're pulling out aromas that we find inside household cleaners, right? Like linalool and geraniol, all these aromas that we really know and love from, well, maybe not love, but like part of our everyday life. Kind of lemon, like pine sol, like clean your tables and stuff with it, and they all have the same aroma compounds that are stuck. But maybe they don't get them from the lupulin, but they are the same chemical aroma. Is that right? Is that how it works? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think they're formulated or synthesized, the wrong word. They're created inside the hop cone, and then we get to work with that, or you guys, I suppose, get to work with that as brewers and see what you come up with. I think one of the big hop breeders for the hop breeding company in the US said that hop cones are like factories for new flavors. And so we can see what emerges from that. Jason Perrault, I think.
Yeah.
Described it that way.
Actually, there's one or two slides still. So just finish off this. Sorry about the Blue Peter style.
Yeah, so that is the final stage for us, at least. After they come out of the cold store, or when they're in the cold store, we take samples, and then we have brewers coming quite frequently. This was between the first and second lockdown, so hopefully during 2021 we'll be able to have a lot more of this. Brewers come to the farm and they select. So one bale of Citra might be very different from another bale of Citra. One bale of Goldings that's picked very early at the end of August will have very different, it might be more grassy and fresh, whereas if you pick Goldings in the middle of September, it'll be a lot danker with musty flavors. But different brewers will want that for their different beers. So we host brewers at Brook House Farm, and you're more than welcome to come and visit if you want to pick your lot. And that's the end of it for us. So we hand over then to brewers, and we might provide the same lot to 2 or 3 different brewers, and they'll brew very different beers.
But you do still have some other things living around on the farm.
You put me on the spot there, Brett. So it is a working farm. These are 2 very cheeky sheep, which emerged a couple of weeks ago. Our partner business, Brook House Woods, who runs a lot of glamping and stuff, bought these 2 sheep, and I just thought they were very cute for the evening. Yeah.
Cool. So that's what we got from the slideshow. And next beer to kind of fuel the conversation, just out of contrast, we put in this Madness IPA. Help just have a distinction, and it's also still quite a fresh IPA as well. So I grew up in California, and grew up enjoying IPAs like this, or what I hope to make at least. And when we started the brewery, we wanted to set up and create an IPA that was really quite boldly bitter, aromatic, citrusy, piney, to show off those characters that hops can give off. And that beer was called Madness IPA. And we, over the years, we changed that beer out and made a new one called Nebula. And but we brought back this one with some modern hops from America, but so it's not the classic West Coast IPA hops. This has quite a lot of Equinaut in it, and I think you get quite overripe, kind of tropical fruit. Very big. This one's 6.8%. Brook House is 6%, so it's not quite an incredibly fair comparison, but as a contrast, it's definitely contrasting and showing off because it's a very similar recipe, just slightly more malt. And I think both of these beers just show off kind of, to me, these are kind of craft beers that taste like beer. Does that make sense? It doesn't taste like orange juice or mango juice. And it's also not what we make a lot of kind of sour beer that doesn't really taste like beer. These ones are like good pintable drinks. There's quite a lot of Equinaut in this one. And yeah.
And how many IBUs were you shooting for on the Madness?
So that's something we hadn't even talked really about, the like bitterness that comes from hops, have we? That's like what the whole hop industry is based on, at least used to be.
It's unfashionable nowadays.
Yeah. Now that's one of the things that is unique to you guys setting up from the beginning, is you were focused on aroma and flavor, not just focused on either historical methods or focused just on making bitterness. So to everybody out there that might not know, right, it's on the rise. The hops are often just valued for the alpha acid or the bitterness potential that they have, and it would be sold just by the ton of alpha. Would that be right? So you want to grow as high alpha, high bitterness hops that you can, so you can get the highest value on the open market. That would be a historical way. Am I super?
Yeah.
I guess the best analogy is growing oranges to make orange squash. So we try as hard as we can to move away from that, but historically, a lot of lager brewers just buy hops for bitterness, without any flavor counting in. Yeah.
Yeah. So the global market was traditionally balanced, but was mostly all about just the alpha acid content. Now it's a tug of war between alpha and aroma. And as these, real flavor forward beers become more popular, then that puts an added demand on alpha. So yeah, it's a fine balance for the market, and it's always a tricky balance for growers and merchants and brewers to keep up with.
Yeah, and it's so nice to talk to you guys that is focused on just aroma and flavor, because we don't look at hops for their bittering quality. It's actually just a bit that sometimes gets in the way sometimes, and because in Madness IPA, to your question, we shot for 75 IBUs, but we wouldn't. I don't believe that's how much has gotten into the final beer, into the actual glass in front of you. alpha acid has to be boiled because you guys can correct me on this terminology. I think it's hydrophobic. So it's got to be boiled and actually change its molecular structure in order to dissolve into the liquid and become what's called isomerized. And then that's what makes the unfermented beer really bitter. But all through the journey whilst it goes from being unfermented to fermented and then clarified and packaged, you lose that bitterness all along the way through clarifying or through yeast. And hops are a antimicrobial aspect and helps keep your beer clean and bacteria free in most cases. And that's because the bitterness actually surrounds the bacteria cell, and it also coats kind of yeast cells and makes them a bit less healthy. And so when you clear your beer and it becomes a lot clearer, you will be taking out bitterness. And so that's why we calculate at the beginning to have around 75 to 80 IBUs. But the final result, by the time we get into the glass, is probably more like 55, 60. So there's a long way to say that. Andrew will give me a rant about going off on IBUs and bitterness. But yeah, guys, cheers. Thank you so much for being involved. I can't wait to future harvests and developing some more beers that have your hops in them as well. It's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. I mean, we're trying as hard as we can to. There's been a huge renaissance in interest in hops, I guess, over the last 3 or 4 years, and we're trying as hard as we can to get English hops weighed into that. And I think hopefully by processing them correctly and getting them brewed by good brewers like you, we can pull them along. Yeah.
So we've got a question about this no boil IPA that we're going to try next. Well, they're not a question, just a comment. Do you guys also have a cider farm? Because you said that you've got, there's fruit growing in your region, but also there is other stuff. I mean, there's other reasons for me. I really want to come visit, and I like kind of small.
Yeah, it's tricky with Corona, but I guess we're in the kind of Yakima Valley of cider, and so we have a really great cidery actually called Little Pomona, and they hardly buy any yeast at all. It's all grown on the apples around here, and they're doing a fantastic job actually. So yeah, Little Pomona is really cracking along. So where did the yeast from this beer come from?
For the no boil one?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I wish we had James in here to talk about it. James, the barrel wrangler of the Wild Beer Company. He was always going on about this no boil IPA, and I wasn't paying attention. And then one day he brewed it. Okay. And what he was going for here, and I think he did a really good, amazing job on it. It was incredibly complex. This beer, so it's not boiled, where most beer is you extract the sugar, you convert the starch from the malt into some maltose, maltotriose, and lots of other sugar, very sweet, tastes like Horlicks. and then you boil it. And you boil it so you sterilize it. You boil it so you can add in spices and flavors from hops or other ingredients. You also boil it to help make it clearer, because that get rid of a bunch of unwanted protein. You boil it to combine that malt character and kind of cook it. It helps deepen it and enrichen it. It enhances the flavor. It can develop more color. So there's lots of reasons why you would boil a beer. But we do a number of beers that are not boiled at all. And that's largely because we really like to experiment with microorganisms and the flavors they create given different environments. And so in this beer, we heated it up below boiling, but we were trying to kill off any maybe unwanted bacteria that might have come through from the malting and the mashing process. You get this really pale, it's hazy for sure, but it's really pale yellow. Super funky. If you like crazy stinky cheese, you'll like it.
What was the batch size, Brett?
I'm going to get to your yeast question. Sorry, Will. Batch size was 20, I think it was about 20 hectoliters, 22 hectoliters, so 2,200 liters.
Okay.
And so we brewed it on day one. Then we transferred it to a wooden vat, to a 2,000 or it's a 3,000 liter vat from the wine industry. And we added in some New England like IPA yeast, really fruity. You kind of get real sweet pear and apple kind of coming from it sometimes. And it plays really nicely with hops. And in order to get some bitterness into the beer, because James is wanting to get that in there, he took off a small portion, about 40 liters, and boiled just that small portion with some hops to get some of that. Going back to that science lesson that I talked about, that isomerized hops. So we isomerized some hops in like 40 liters, like this hop tea, and transferred it back in. So I guess it's like 1/100th of it was boiled.
Oh, I see. And then once you'd boiled that, you put it back into the bowl.
Yeah, but that was just a very small amount of it.
So essentially using that as a stabilizer.
Yeah, we were really kind of looking for this. In the end, we were looking for an IPA. We were trying to replicate an IPA, and we were scratching our heads on how to get some bitterness in there. And that's the way we came up with that. Was not necessarily just for stable, as you're kind of talking about, like from like keeping bacteria at bay. Is that what you're going at?
Yeah, I suppose it really intrigues me. I've never seen one of these beers before, so yeah, I'm just trying to get my brewing head around how you didn't worry yourself to sleep thinking that it was just going to go crazy with mold.
Yeah. Well, Jim, we also have a beer called Somerset Wild. Have you ever had that one? So that's also raw beer.
Oh, okay.
With no hops at all. Definitely no hops. So that goes from mash tun straight to the fermenter and doesn't even go to the kettle. It goes straight to the fermenter, and we use cider yeast. Originally, we got apples from Dan, who works at the brewery. He lives just down the road, and he brought in some apples. We cleaned them up, brushed the dirt off, and then put those inside a small fermentation and started propagating up that local yeast, and propagated that up so big that we could add it to 3,000 liters of raw beer. And that is Somerset Wild. And let's see what else. There's also Sourdough is a low ABV. We only boil it for about 15 to 30 minutes, maybe. And there's also no hops in there. So we do kind of.
That's one of my favorite beers that you make.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been duped by you.
Yeah. So we've done a number of kind of no boil and a number of other beers in between. I'm sure. I know we have. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But those ones are available on the website right now. You can get a whole raw tasting box and a rare steak as well. Why not? But that, quite honestly, the wild fermentation in beer, cider, wine, it really does, for me, it's got those direct aroma, same intriguing characteristics that is in like those stinky cheeses, those funky foods, those things that we don't drink and eat loads of these things, right? But we save them for special times and paydays, weekends, whatever.
No, I agree. There's so much complexity in this. It's ridiculous. Like you have your first sniff and there's hay, but then if you think about it a bit more, there's all sorts of weird stuff which is so far from hay, like mango and pineapple or papaya. That there's a huge gap in the middle, and I think you only get that from wild stuff. Yeah.
So one of the key hops in this is Galaxy, and I just, this is such a cool evening talking to hop growers and being able to just kind of talk hops. And I know these are not all your hops, and apologies, but yeah, the showing off that real tropical. That's a hop that's grown in Australia.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're getting a lot of those real tropical notes, along with the fermentation. So do you think you're going to be able to save the rest of that till tomorrow then, Will? I know that was your ambition.
No, yeah, I asked you, could I keep it till tomorrow? I'm not sure my wife tolerates me drinking too much beer, too many nights per week, but it's too tasty to save. You're right, Brad.
It's good. It's good. Guys, this has been great. I don't know if I have too many more questions and things to share too much on it, but it's been a cool journey learning about your farm. I've got my cat jumping over. She's about to like knock over some glasses. Sorry. Oh my goodness, she's playing with everything. I don't know. She disrupted the last one as well, or made it entertaining. But yeah, you've got some well wishers. Will, good job, Will, from Dan.
Good note. The only thing I'll add, if you don't mind, is that we're very keen to keep people interested in hops. Whether you'll only buy English hops or Australian hops or New Zealand hops, we don't care. If you want the drama around an English hop farm during late August, September is really something. So if you want to come and visit, get involved, do email us and come and visit. It's a really fantastic opportunity to find out about the ingredients of beer. That's all I'd have to say.
Thank you so much, Will. Really, the generosity in sharing all this information and sharing the beer. Thank you.
Now I just want to see Brett drive a tractor.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe not right now. Yeah, I had this whole hope that I could drive up to you guys and pick up the hops, and I could like film some stuff at the farm and kind of do like a little short video, but this COVID got in the way of that idea. So maybe we can postpone that and we can do a different one. Maybe we can do a different beer with your hops that's maybe more like on the wilder side of things, using your hops, showcasing those, maybe even like a cool shit brew or something like that, where it really gets really funky. And
yeah, a 0 mile. I've always wanted to do a 0 mile beer where it's all brewed in like 1 mile radius, and something like that would be fantastic.
Do you have any barley being grown around?
We could do that. We've got spare land. Yeah. No. Yeah. Crack on. We can do it.
Let's do it. I'm trying to remember the late great, just such an inspiration. Roger Ryman. He one of the UK's brewing heroes. One of my brewing heroes. He definitely an inspiration. Yeah, St. Austell. Yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly what the ratio was, but I think it was 1 meter square of barley. Did it make 1 cask of best bitter, or did it make 1 pint? I can't remember exactly. I can't imagine it only makes 1 pint. It must make 1 cask. But he would always go on about all these amazing statistics like that and amazing numbers. So we just have to grow 1 meter square of barley, and then we can do that. I can bring up our little brewing kit and make something happen. Figure it out.
I'll buy you a spade, Brett.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm not the farmer. I don't work that land yet.
No, you work hard. Yeah.
I can try.
Cool.
Just guys, thank you so much. And if we have our next tasting box available just online today for the first time. It is showcasing a brand new beer that's just hit the online shop called TikTok. Not like the app, more like the clock. It's a German Pilsner made with German malt, and it's aged in French red wine barrels. So it's a really amazing kind of like nuances of wood, oak, spice, little hints of red wine, but like this full-bodied kind of slightly bitter lager, Pilsner. And we're going to be doing it with our friends from Manchester Union Lager Brewery in Manchester, where they do decoction mashing, so very traditional method of brewing. We're going to have 2 of their beers and our 2 lagers. So kind of celebrating lager. That's the live date is next, the 26th of February, but you can buy the online box right now. So guys, thank you so much. And if anybody in the chat is interested in that box, there's an online code that I think is shared on the information page to get 10% off that tasting box. But Jim and Will, thank you so much. And
cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us, Brett.
Have a great night, everybody.
Take care.